Top your head. I went to the dictionary because I was on the internet seeing a lot of things about fear, and I went to the dictionary. The dictionary defined fear as the unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain or threat. Most of us have been affected by fear at one time or the other. The first instinct of every human is self-preservation. That's what the scientists say. If your livelihood or life is threatened, your first emotion is fear. Fear will cause you to react either by running or fighting. Psychologists call this fight, or flight. Unfortunately, some of us come to church because of fear. Fear of hellfire. Fear of losing our souls, fear of death, fear of disease, fear of corona. Fear will knock a hole in your socks. People who are fearful usually get into trouble because some people will lock up in their room because they're fearful. Some people do things irrational because of fear. But my Bible tells me that we have not been given the spirit of fear, but of power and love and of sound minds. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. And so as Seventh-day Adventists and as Christians, we should be well aware and prepared for days like this. Amen, somebody? We've been talking about this for many years. The days are coming when men shall run to and fro. How men's hearts are failing them because of fear, because of the things that are coming upon this world. Jesus tells us in Luke chapter 21 that these days are coming. We need to pay careful attention to Jesus' words. I want you to notice to whom he speaks and how he referenced his points. He's talking to the disciples and he's making reference to the Gentiles. And by the way, that's not us black people. Believe it or not, Gentiles are non-believers, or in those days, non-Jewish people. Are you with me? Because the Jews were the chosen people of God. Are you following me? Are you following me? Yes. Stay with me. So why the disciples? Why the disciples? Or why Jesus spoke to them? Well, let me just back up here and give you a little history. Because you see the marvel and beauty of the temple, because this all started because of a remark that the disciples said to Jesus while looking on the temple. You remember that? If you go back to the story, you'll just go back to the beginning of the chapter, and you'll see the reading, and you'll see that the disciples made a remark to Jesus about the temple. And Jesus said, "I'll tell you the truth. Not one stone will left upon another." Now, for Jesus to say that was a shocker. I mean, it was a blast, a hit in the faces of the disciples. Why? Because the beauty and the marvel of the temple was no secret to the world. History tells us that the splendor and pulchritude of the temple was unmatched, and we are talking about the second temple, not the first. The first temple, built by Solomon, was beyond expression of words. According to historians, there is not another structure built before or after that come close to the beauty of the temple of God that Solomon built. The Taj Mahal is a marvelous structure, one of the 8 wonders of the world, and yet it cannot be compared to the temple of God. The temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. I can't get into go back in all the history because I have about 10 minutes to go. I can't get into history, but y'all know that Nebuchadnezzar came, took the children of Israel captive, the 10 tribes captive, and destroyed the temple. When that temple was destroyed, the Jews returned to Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple with all the vigor and effort of that was placed in the first one. But it did not come close. It came close enough, but not too close. It was not 100%. And yet, the beauty of that temple was still something to be talked about. The commentary said the rising sun above the Mount of Olives cast its golden gilded beauty beauty upon the mount of the temple, and within the walls, within the temple itself, the rays of the sun cast the gilded pews, the beauty upon the rays cast this glimmer upon the pews, and making the gilded pews a most beautiful sight. The planks that hung upon the edge of the temple was so beautiful that the sun made them look like golden rays of golden hues. And she said, when you look from the top of the mount upon this beautiful structure, your eyes almost deceive you of the beauty. I'm paraphrasing now because she didn't say that. I'm just paraphrasing how she outlaid it. But we have no idea how beautiful this temple was. And the problem with that was because everybody, since the first temple was destroyed, many people had claimed the temple. And Jesus himself, because of all the work that he was doing, he went into the temple daily and preached. And the disciples wanted, in their minds, thought that Jesus had overtaken the temple. So here they were, according to scholars, beating their chest and talking about which room they're going to have, or which office they're going to have in the temple, and all this beautiful temple, and it will never lose its luster. And Jesus looked at them and said, I tell you the truth, not one stone is going to be laid, is it going to leave upon another. And this was a shocker. Because they believed within themselves that this temple will never be destroyed again. The Jews have a way of arrogance about them. If you notice, after the Hitler and all the Holocaust, every year the Jews would meet. If you walk around here and see some of them on the cars, they would say, you see two words, never again. I don't know if any of you have ever noticed that. There are two words that they use, never again, meaning that the Holocaust will never happen again. But you can't be too sure. You can't be too sure, because the Holocaust happened because you disobeyed God. And if you continue to disobey God, something else will happen. Are you with me? Yes. So, they say that the temple will never be destroyed again. This beautiful structure is not going anywhere. And we're going to control this temple structure. I spent too much time on this, but I like to say the background. So Jesus said, that's not going to happen. This temple is going down. He predicted it, and it happened in AD 70. Are you with me? AD 70. But they said, Jesus, no, Master, you need to tell us what will be the signs for this to happen. It's almost as if they were tempting Jesus, because they already purposed in their mind that this structure ain't going nowhere. So we want to know what are the things that we need to look out for when this happens, because this is going to be something to see this temple go down. And Jesus began to outline the discourse of all the things that was about to happen. Folks, did you know that on any given day, at any given moment in your life, there are at least 15 wars and armed conflicts actively going on all around this world? We might only hear about a few of them on the news, but there are at least 15 wars and armed conflicts actively on at this very moment that we are speaking. Every day, people are fighting to the death for the ideas they believe in. Some are fighting for the independence and freedom. Some are dying for their right to be heard, to be treated as human beings. There's so many things. As a matter of fact, China started to persecute Christians. And they were supposed to start this February to increase. They actually met, she and all them, they pronounce it as she. They met and decided that they were going to increase the persecution of Christians in China. Now, I'm not trying to say, what y'all think I'm trying to say, but God has a way of taking care of his people. I don't hear anybody saying that. I think I'm talking to the lights. God has a way of taking care of his people. God has a way of holding things up so that God's people can be taken care of. Are you with me? The largest Seventh-day Adventist church is found in China. The largest underground church in the world is found in China, the SDA Church, led by a woman. And they started to persecute, and they were supposed to increase persecution this past February. But God changed things. Amen. So that the very president of the second greatest country on earth had to go into hiding. Y'all not listening to me, y'all not listening to me, y'all not listening to me. The greatest, the man that said he was the greatest, the second greatest man on earth, went underground. For at least 2 weeks they couldn't find him. He was underground. Popped his head up sometime last week and visited Wuhan County because they did something because things are slightly coming down to look, things are looking a little bit better. I'm trying to say. But God has a way of doing His thing so that men don't know. When men are saying, Lord, I don't know which way to go, I don't know what's going to happen, and when fear comes upon us, we need not fear because God has a way of getting us out of trouble. We might not see it coming. We might not know how it's going to happen. But God always finds a way. He always finds a way. I don't know. Sometimes the Lord, as I go through stuff, sometimes the Lord, I don't know how you're going to fix this one. You can't fix this one. I don't see any way for you to fix it. And all of a sudden, something happens. And I said, Lord, how did you think of this? I couldn't think of it. But God has a way that you can't know to fix the problems that you never thought could have been fixed. Amen. So we should not fear when trouble comes. Amen. Yes, sir. They were willing to fight. Some even say they're fighting for their peace. Yeah. But too many of the ongoing wars and conflicts taking place today are being dismissed, forgotten, ignored, and underreported. Somali civil war in Africa, Kashmir unrest in India, war in Darfur, Africa, civil war in Myanmar, Asia, conflict in Donbass, Ukraine, South Sudan, civil war, Africa, conflict in Peru, South America, instability in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Africa, the North Caucasus insurgency in Russia, West Papua civil war in Asia, the Cabinda war in Angola, Africa. All these things are taking place while we are talking. Signs of the end of the war and terror in Egypt, the hybrid war in Africa, military tension in the East, China Sea, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Notice that Jesus says in verse 9, do not panic. Do not be frightened. These signs are stepping stones leading on to our final goal. What's your final goal, folks? What's your final goal? What's your final goal? Bible tells us, by them taking place, they should remind us that the end of the age is getting closer. There will be natural disasters, and oh Lord, there have been natural disasters. The tsunamis that changed time. The last tsunami, the tsunami that took place in Indonesia, I think it was, that tsunami, they said, moved the earth off its axis. The Bible says signs shall be happening in the air, in the sea. These things are taking place, and we need to take note that these things are happening because Jesus said that these things will happen before the Son of Man comes through the cloud. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. We have always had natural disasters all over the place. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, mudslides, and volcanoes, etc. In a world gone wrong, corrupted by sin, even nature is in rebellion. Amen. But with the impact of global warming, the scale, severity, and frequency of all these things seem to have increased in recent years. Let me just say this. There is also China is leading the world in Wi-Fi technology. Right now, we're operating, some of us, most of the carriers are operating on what we call 4G. T-Mobile has moved over to 5G. 5G was launched incidentally, in Wuhan province in China in January. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully, guys. Listen to me carefully. 5G was launched in Wuhan province in China in January. 5G operates, and you can Google it while I'm talking. 5G operates on 100 megahertz. Now, if y'all know anything about microwave that operates on 4 megahertz, and the rest of the G's that operates on lower frequency, 100 megahertz is going to kill a lot of people. The frequency of 5G is purported. Now I'm streaming, so I gotta be careful. Y'all can Google this too. It's purported to have activated viruses. It is connected to the activation of certain viruses. I can't call no name because I get myself in trouble. But if you go to the internet and look up the frequency of the 5G and the coincidence of it being released in Wuhan province and then activated, and then you go and see people falling over, because what the 5G does is to pull the oxygen from your lungs. Not only that, it activates by the frequency the coronavirus. Now remember, I didn't say COVID-19. The coronavirus is a common cold, the flu, the MRSA. All those are coronaviruses. And we all understand that, right? We all understand that. There are people now that have been coughing since December and can't get rid of their cough. Do you know anybody like that? There are people that have been coughing since December. I drove my mom to the doctor on Monday. Reluctantly, because I have things to do. And the doctor takes long. But I reluctantly drove my mom to the doctor on Monday. I'm glad I did, because she came out of that. She was coughing since December. And the doctor told her that we just had a meeting. Again, I'm streaming, so I gotta be careful. Somebody will look up my mom's doctor. We just had a meeting. And we're thinking that this virus has been around since December, because we don't understand why so many of you have been coughing since December and we can't get rid of it. And I said to my mom, it's not, if it was corona, I'd be dead, because I'm the one taking care of you. I'd have had it as well. So it's not that it was a corona, but it's because of the frequency that's invigorating these things that are causing us to cough so much. We need to be educated on these things. And so times are here when we are having things that are happening to us that cannot be explained. And we need to know what's happening around us. Jesus said these things are happening. Somebody said that there's a research geophysicist with the U.S. Geological Survey in California said, we have recently experienced a period that has had one of the highest rates of great earthquakes ever recorded. Did the Bible say something about that? Records clearly show that large earthquakes have risen by over 450% since 1900. 450% increase? Sadly, expect more, not fewer, says the geologist. Natural disasters are coming and you need to expect more. There will be a persecution. As a matter of fact, they said the fault that runs through California all the way through New York up through Alaska, that fault is supposed to erupt sometime. They don't know when. They call it the Great San Francisco Fault, but it runs all the way through Alaska, through New York. Did y'all know that? It goes to New York. What's the name of that fault? Is it the San Andreas Fault? Yeah, I'll Google that fault. It runs all the way through to California, all the way up through to New York. And they're saying that that fault needs to, this is what they decided to say, it needs to go off because it's overdue. Lord help us. But before all this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name. So if you know the man named Jesus, if you know the person named Jesus, and you tell somebody about Jesus, and you worship Jesus, things are going to happen, because the devil hates to know that you know him who saved you from your sins. Satan doesn't like it. He hates it. And so you need to understand that the moment you choose Jesus, you have gone to the side of the hate of the devil. He hates you because you love Jesus. And he's going to cause things to happen to you that you probably think should never happen to you. But I want you to understand that as long as you know Jesus, you have nothing to worry about.
Amen.
Make up your mind not to worry beforehand. How you will defend yourselves, Jesus said. Don't even sit down and premeditate about running. Don't even sit down and make no plans about what you're going to do. Jesus said, for I will give you words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's what Jesus said. A lot of us are blinded by fear. We're not seeing what Jesus is actually saying. Jesus is not putting fear in us. He's encouraging us. But most of us read the Bible and we get fearful. Somebody called me midnight one night and said, Pastor, I'm reading Revelation and I can't sleep. Why? It means to reveal. Jesus is revealing some good news to you. Why can't you sleep? Because all I see are dragons and beasts and stuff. You're paying attention to the wrong thing. We read Revelation and pay attention to the wrong thing. Did you see where he's coming in the clouds of glory to take you home forever? Did you see that part? But you're looking at the wrong thing. Look, Jesus said, I will give you things so that when they come, they are unable to resist you or contradict you. 2 months ago, I came before you and I told you, it's coming. We had seminars. In the evening, I told you what to do and how to prepare yourselves. Most of us here are prepared. Most of us here knows what to do. Most of us here have remedies that I've recommended, and we've gone out and read and dug up stuff, and we are prepared. And most of all, we have Jesus. Amen, somebody? Amen, somebody? You will be betrayed even by your parents, your brothers, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. All men will hate you because of me, but not a hair of your head will perish. Will what? Will what? Will perish. Not a hair of your head will perish. Because I said so, said Jesus. Jesus moved now, so now he's moving from the distant future, the end of the world, to the more immediate future. In fact, he tells the disciples the sort of future they will be experiencing. These verses read like a summary of the book of Acts sometimes, which chronicles the bloody trail of the men and the women who carried the gospel to the ends of the earth. That trial, however, didn't end with the close with Acts chapter 28. If you go there, it continues today, and I'll just write it down. You go home and read it because I'm already past time. It continues today in the lives of persecuted Christians all over the world. So chapter 28 didn't end the persecution. Christians have been persecuted all over the world today. Muslims murdering, dismembering Christians, burning them to the stakes. Nigeria. All over the world. Christians are dying. We still have the freedom to come and worship. We still have the freedom to gather and choose the day that we're worshiping and worship God. And we need to give him thanks. About 100 million Christians have been persecuted around the world each day. And according to Jesus, sadly enough, it will continue its rugged course until Christ returns and takes his home to be with him. Jerusalem will be destroyed. The temple will be destroyed. But we should be careful to know that God is in control. And we need to understand something. When Jesus speaks, there are men that were there who try to undermine and discredit what he said. To this day, people are still deciphering the words of Jesus. And, oh, this guy, Luke stole from John, and Mark stole. Luke stole from Mark, and Mark stole from Matthew. And we have to look deeper to see the meaning, because we're not even sure if we're pretty sure, according to these people, we're pretty sure that there was stuff in the library in Alexandria that they took out, but because the library is destroyed, we can't find it. But we're pretty sure that Mark went over there and found some stuff, and then when Matthew saw that, he tried to copy what John was saying, and then Luke took from John, and here we have the synopsis. Somebody say it for me. The synopsis?
Synoptic Gospel.
Ah, there you go, Elder. Elder, help me out. The Synoptic Gospel. And we all know that it's Matthew, Mark, and John. And they override each other sometimes. People say they borrow. But scholars will say a lot of things to discredit the Bible. That's my point. And discredit what Jesus said. And because of that, we have to understand that it's only by faith that we should come to the Bible and know what Jesus is saying and know that it is true. Jesus turns his disciples by telling them his days were numbered. The temple days are numbered. And we need to understand that it's going to fall. For the disciples, this building looked like it would stand forever. But Jesus said to them, it will soon be history. The reaction by the disciples to that news is to ask two questions. When will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they're about to take place? Keep in mind as we read now that this verse that this is not an all-inclusive teaching on the end time. Jesus is not teaching everything on the end time, but he's allowing us to see some things that's coming. And then when he was finished, he said, look, you should know, because you see the tree, when you know it's in set, you know summer is coming. If you see things happening that should be happening then these things are happening because I'm coming. But it was a depressing time. I'm not lying. These things, let me wrap up by just saying, these things were depressing to the disciples. And Jesus understood this clearly. Because the words that he used tells us that he understood that these men and these women around him were depressed after hearing what he had to say. First of all, the temple is going to die. The temple is going to fall. So Jesus said, lift up your heads. He said, first of all, he said, hold up your head, lift it up. And look up. He said, look up first. Now, I had to go studying these words because I knew they had some more meaning to them than what it was. The first word that Jesus used, look up, the Greek word, it means to turn around, to reverse your state of being. So Jesus is saying, I understand that you're depressed. I understand that you're looking down. And when we sad, we look down. We have a tendency to do that. Jesus said, I understand that you're looking down and you're depressed. But while he was talking, the heads keep. At the moment he said, I tell you the truth. There's one stone that won't left onto another. Then the disciples' heads started to go like this. And then Jesus said, things are going to happen and they're going to persecute you. And the head went like this. And he said, you're gonna be thrown into jail. And the head went like this. And said, some of you are going to die. Your family are gonna talk against you and even turn against you. And the heads went like this here. And while Jesus is talking, this is what he's looking at. Men with their heads down. And Jesus said, when you hear these things happen, first of all, he said, then shall you see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Is that what he said? Is that what he said? And after he said that, he said, when you see these things about happening, look up. Doesn't mean to hold your head up. It means to change your state of mind. Take away the depression and anxiety. Move that out the way. Look up. Cheer up. And then he said, gird yourself. Then he said, stand up and gird yourself right and be happy now. Put yourself together. Hold your head up and be happy and put yourself together, because your redemption draweth nigh. Because your freedom draweth nigh. Because what Jesus is saying is, listen, I'm going to go to the cross and I'm going to die for your sin. Redemption means that you pay a price for something. When you have been redeemed, it simply means that somebody paid something for you. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So Jesus uses that word to let them know that I am going to pay something for you. I'm going to pay the price for your life. So hold up your head. Change your temperament. Change your mind. Get away from the depression. Get away from the anxiety and the sadness. Gird yourself and change your attitude. Jesus said, change your attitude, because when you see all these things coming, it means that I'm on my way. Folks, I'm telling you today that Jesus wants you to understand that it's not about the war and the pestilence. It's not about the jail and the beating. It's about him coming back in glory in the air. Can you see him? Can you see him? Can you see him? Can you see him? He's on there. He's in there with the Father. He's in there with the Father. The word says that he went in with the Father, and the Father said, because he said to this, and I'm gonna fix this right now, because he said to the people, the disciples, he said, listen now, no man knows the time or the hour. No one knows the time or the hour. And somebody said, well, if he doesn't, Jesus don't know the time or the hour, then why should we even predict when he's coming? But that's not what Jesus meant. That's not what he meant. I read and I studied, and the commentary tells me that Jesus chose not to know the time or the hour because of his love for humanity. He's pleading every day on our behalf. He's crying out to the Father, one more day, Father, one more day, because Nigel needs a little bit more time. Hallelujah. Somebody, Nigel needs a little bit more time. So he's crying out to the Father to hold on, because he loved the world so much that he don't want to see a single soul pass away in hell. So Jesus is pleading, and he chooses not to know the time because of anguish upon him. And so Jesus said, I'm holding out. But somebody said that the Father called him in the book of redemption, the story of redemption. The person that she said, the Father called him and said, son, it's time to go. It's time to go. And he got up and said, let he that is filthy, let he that is filthy, let him be filthy still. Let he that is filthy. And I want you to understand that he's in there talking to the Father. Can you see him? He has a crown of righteousness upon his head. Can you see him? He's leaving the porch of heaven. Let he that is filthy remain filthy still. Can you see him? He's coming through Orion, the only constellation that is expanding every year, the only constellation that can be seen from every country on earth. Don't ask me, don't ask me, don't ask me. Can you see him? He's riding on a white horse. Can you see him? He's clothed in righteousness, crown upon his head, the crown of glory upon his head. Can you see him? You see him. He has the sword of the Spirit in his hand. The 7 candlesticks before him. Can you see him? Can you see him? Look up. Change your attitude. Gird yourself. He's coming. Oh, he's coming soon, I know. Oh, he's coming. Oh, sweet are the tidings that greet the pilgrim's air as he wanders in exile from home. Soon will the Savior in glory appear, and soon will the kingdom come back to this earth again, and the weary pilgrim will to glory go when the Savior comes to reign. Can you see him? Can you see him coming on the white horse? Can you see him surrounded with angels? Oh, 1,000 of angels, millions of angels coming down with him. And Jesus has the crown of righteousness upon his head. He's coming to judge this world. He had a sickle in his hand, and 7 candlesticks surrounded him. The saints are gathered all around. They're waiting for him. Their blood was crying out. But Jesus said, cry no more. I'm here for you. Cry no more. I've come to save you. Bible said, when they see him, every cry in the eye shall see him, and every knee shall bow. Every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord of lords, King of kings, the glory of all glory. He's coming back again, and he's coming for us. He's coming for you. He's coming for me. And if we believe in Jesus, he's coming to save you. So let us put ourselves together. Lift up your head. Gird yourself. Change your attitude. Let the world know that you know somebody named Jesus. He's coming for you. He's coming for me. And as long as I know him, as long as I know him, I know nobody named Corona. I don't care about Corona. I don't give a hoot about Corona, because I know somebody named Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
No fear. Hallelujah. No fear.